Hey friends, welcome back to Reimagine Founder, the podcast. I'm your host and nonprofit coach, Breanna LaShell. And today we are going to be talking about the current state of the nonprofit space and just what my opinion is on it, where are places I think that we could grow as a nonprofit sphere, where are places that I think that we're really excelling. So this is really going to be more of a conversation piece. It's really going to be diving in to get you informed of what's going on in the nonprofit world. And then I would love for you to communicate back. So hit me up on the socials, do some comments on the blog, whatever, some comments on the YouTube page, wherever you're listening or viewing this. I'd love to have this be more of a conversation. So make sure you're subscribed and you're commenting, you're following along, and yeah, let's dive right in. Okay, so one of the top things that are happening right now in the nonprofit space is funding. Right now, we have been seeing a decrease in donor contributions to organizations, which create a huge impact. And I think that's really tightly tied to trust, right? Public trust in nonprofits has decreased by 7% in the last year, which is a huge amount. So donors are no longer giving money, and I think that's because they no longer trust nonprofits in the ways that they had before. Also, inflation, the state of the economy also plays a part in that. But if we are not creating organizations that people can buy into and trust that they are serving the places that they are intending to serve, or if they don't see the value in a nonprofit, then they're no longer giving their money, giving their resources, or even giving their time to organizations in the nonprofit sphere. And that can be catastrophic for organizations. As I'm sure a lot of you know, or if you didn't, here's the thing: nonprofits survive a lot on donations and sometimes private funding or public funding through grants and things like that. But donations for a lot of organizations is the heartbeat of what they do. And so if they are no longer having funding, we are also seeing huge program cuts happening within the nonprofit sphere. Right now, more than 2/3 of nonprofits are estimating that they're going to have to cut certain projects or cut certain services within the next 1 to 2 years. So these problems are all interrelated in a lot of ways, right? We have less people donating, which is causing a cut in the performances that nonprofits are able to have. And a lot of this is stemming from the lack of trust that we have within the organizations that we see out in the world. And I mean, lots of people can say lots of things about why that might be, right? I think right now in an age where social media is really prevalent, and it's easier than ever to find information about people. I think people are really starting to take into consideration who are the people leading organizations, where are their money actually going. We've seen, misappropriation of funds within the nonprofit sphere from higher level CEOs. We've seen just, a small few people doing really bad things, but that colors how Americans and how donors and how people view nonprofits as a whole. And so we have to start thinking about, how do we get back in touch with the communities that we're serving as nonprofit founders and nonprofit leaders, and how do we make it to where we're more connected than ever, so that way the people who help keep our organization afloat, through donations, through collaborations, through volunteerings, actually knows who we are, knows our heart, and knows where their money is being put towards, right? Another huge problem that organizations are facing right now is the fact that they can't keep a staff, and that can be for a multitude of reasons, right? Some of it is pay. Let's just be super honest. A vast majority of the nonprofit space cannot afford to hire good quality candidates. And I think that is a real issue that we as founders and leaders in the nonprofit sphere has to start taking into consideration is how can we reappropriate our funds or think more strategically about how we bring in money so that way we can afford to hire good people. Because the fact of the matter is that while people might love your organization, if you can't afford to pay them a living wage, or you yourself as a founder or an executive director can't afford to run this nonprofit, then we're missing something. Because yes, is it important for people to be passionate and just love the work that they do, especially in the nonprofit space? Of course. But we can't expect people to pay their bills on hopes and dreams and love and appreciation for a cause, right? We have to be really realistic in the aspect that people want to work with our organizations, but if we can't support them financially so that way they can show up as their full self, or so that way they aren't having to, be a part of 2 or 3 other jobs in order to make a living and still contribute to our organizations, then we're failing. Because good people who are bought into our mission and our vision are how we lead good organizations. Our teams and our volunteers are really the heartbeat of our nonprofit in a lot of ways. And if we can't create spaces where they can thrive, especially financially, then we're failing, and we need to reevaluate what it looks like to have a staff. We need to reevaluate what it looks like within our budget of like what things we can actually provide to our who, because if we're spending all of our money on programs and projects, while that is important, like we want to serve our who, but if so much money is going into that and not enough is making, competitive wage for people, then we can't expect them to, buy into this, like buy into our organization, no matter how much they may love the cause. So we as leaders and founders have to really be thinking in a business mindset. Like we have to figure out where is our funding coming from and how can we make sure we're allocating enough funding to the people who we need to run this organization. Because all of these things ultimately impact our who. Like all of these are things that like we as individuals, we can move on from, but the ultimate purpose of having a nonprofit is the fact that you want to serve and help underserved communities, that you want to make an impact on the brokenness that you see in the world. And if we are facing a lack of trust, a lack of good staffing, a lack of budget, having to cut important programming that is actually serving the people, then ultimately it's our who that suffers. So we as a team have to figure out, okay, like how do we make this work better? How do we make sure that we're serving the people that we set out to serve? On top of that, it's also the National Center of Charitable Statistics say that over 30% of nonprofits will fail within 10 years. That 3 out of 10 nonprofits that are started this year will fail by the year 2034. And to me, that feels so sad and so unfortunate because nonprofits are, in my opinion, the very best way to serve communities. It's the very best way for people who need help to get and receive help. And if the organizations who are providing those resources to them are going to fail, that we know that at least 3 out of 10 are going to fail, then I think that's a really good place that we can start working on. How do we make that statistic even lower? What are things that are causing nonprofits to fail? And it's the same things that we've been talking about, right? Another huge thing is burnout, staff burnout. So we get staff, we finally figure out how to pay them, but then we're working them so hard that they burn out and they're like, I don't even want to do this work anymore. I don't love it anymore because I've been so consumed trying to, do 5 jobs as one person that I'm failing, and it sucks the joy out of it for our people. And I think this is all things that we as leaders have to start considering on how are we setting up our organizations and our people to succeed in helping our who. So we as leaders, I think the buck really stops with us. Right? We have to set up organizations that become, sufficient in how they run. We have to create budgets that can pay our people. We have to set up systems that make it easier for our people to work. We have to make sure we're checking in regularly with our staff and our volunteers to make sure that the work that we're asking them to do can be completed by them. We have to make sure that, our staff and our volunteers are feeling heard and seen and known by their leadership, because people who feel loved love others well, right? People who feel micromanaged don't show up as their best self. So we have to make sure that we are creating good working relationships with the people who are running the organizations that we have been, bestowed the honor of running. Then we have to make sure that the people that we are trying to serve, that we're doing all this for, knows us and trusts us and understands how we work to help support them in their communities, right? We have to make sure that we know who these people are, that they are speaking into the organization that we are building, that they have a voice in the programs that we're creating and the problems that we're helping address. We need to be connected to the communities that we serve in order to be impactful. And I think that's really important place for us to land, is that all of these things have to work together, because when we're in community, that community learns to know us and to trust us and to value us, which means they'll start telling other people about it, who will then donate to us, which then brings up our funds, which then makes it easier for us to pay our staff well, to make sure the programs that our people need are in place, and to make sure that, we are functioning as a well-oiled machine. And so we have gotten out of place in a lot of those pieces. I mean, some organizations are struggling with one or more of those areas. And so we have to start thinking about, like, okay, all of these things are interconnected. So where is the place that is broken within our organization that needs a little TLC that we can help create a better system for us to be able to move forward and be more abundant? Now, all these things aren't bad, right? All the things in the nonprofit space isn't bad. So if you're hearing this and are like, geez, Breanna, you just like trashed all over the nonprofit space, that's not my agenda. Like, I think it's important that we're aware, because we can't fix problems that we're not aware of. So, and we can't be a part of a conversation that no one's having. So I think it's important for us to like really reflect on where are the places that the nonprofit sphere is struggling, and how can we as founders, consultants, board members, leadership teams, identify what problems our personal organizations are having and how we move forward. And if you're a founder, figuring out how to set your new organization up for success in the beginning, so you don't have to, hurry and shuffle trying to figure out how to plug holes if you build a foundation that doesn't have any holes in the first place, right? So that's an important conversation that we have to have in order for not only our individual organizations to be successful, but the nonprofit sphere as a whole to be successful. On the good things, the nonprofit sphere is experiencing growth. And some of that growth includes employment. Now, we might be having a hard time retaining our staff, but we're not having a hard time hiring staff. So it's been measured that employment in the nonprofit sphere has increased rapidly, especially over the 2 years post-COVID. Okay. So more people are diving into wanting to be in nonprofit spaces. Now there's challenges in keeping them to stay, hiring, paying them competitively, making sure that they're not burning out and things like that once they get in the space. But people are excited about being in nonprofits. They see that as a valuable sphere to work to contribute. So I think that's a really important piece for us to understand, is that there are people out there who want to serve us, who want to serve in our organizations, who want to serve with us to accomplish our mission and vision, right? So there's not a lack of people. There's a lack of stable resources, stable processes that support the staff, but the staff is there, ready and willing to be a part of organizations that they believe in and that they think are making a real difference. So for all of you out there who are thinking about starting an organization, I think that especially is a huge bonus for you, because you know that there are people out there who want to be a part of nonprofit organizations, that they see that work as valuable. Okay. There's also the fact of there are more women in the workforce. Women are twice as likely to work at nonprofits compared to men. And I think that that can be a really beautiful thing, especially for women who want to be a part of the workforce, to know that there is a unique space for women in nonprofits. There's a lot more that goes with that we can talk about in another episode, but I think it's important to know that the nonprofit space has made a unique opportunity for women to rejoin the workforce post-pandemic, or to, find a greater meaning in the work that they're doing by partnering with nonprofits. And so I think that's a really beautiful thing for us to consider, is that there are good things happening. There is a desire to be a part of nonprofit organizations. There is a desire to work in nonprofits, to give to nonprofits, to see how nonprofits work within our organizations. But we as leaders and as founders have to put forth the effort to make sure that we're creating really safe space for people to land, and a space that pours in to others as much as we're expecting and hoping that others will pour into us, right? So it's a tricky balance for us to have to manage, but I think it's important. And yeah, I think that if we, especially, I think one of the greatest things that we as leaders can be doing right now is building trust in the communities that we're serving. We have to really rebuild what it means to be a nonprofit in a community, and we have to start reconfiguring how people think about nonprofits, right? So right now, I think it's important that we're doing a lot of community engagement, that we're talking to our who, that we are being really visible within our communities to let people know, like, hey, I don't know what you think about nonprofits. I don't know what you've heard about other organizations, but our organization, we believe in this. We value this. We are trying to accomplish this goal, and we want to partner with you. And we want to hear about, what are you struggling with? What are things that you would like our organization to do to open up that wall of communication, so people can become more invested in our organizations, which will make us more stable and start to fill the gaps that are creating challenges for us as a sphere, or maybe fill in the gaps that you yourself are seeing right now as a nonprofit as you're listening to this conversation, right? So I think the sooner that we get reconnected and start building that trust back with the people, with American people in general, especially, this is an important piece too, I think, is that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are coming into their own, right? They are soon going to be able to make donations. Some are already making donations. They are becoming donors, and they are about the action. They don't really care about a good talk. They don't care about things being perfect and pristine. They care about real action takers making real community impact, and they want to give both financially and with their time to people and to organizations that they truly know, trust, and can be bought into. And so if we are not creating that trust, we will lose them as a donor base. While that might have not affect us as much right now, in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, that is going to make a huge difference. So we have to start just reimagining what it looks like to be a nonprofit in 2024, because the ways that have worked in the past might not be the best ways that we continue with moving forward. And so we as leaders have to be open to this concept. We have to be open to this change, and we have to be open to listening to the feedback from the people, both that we're serving and both who are contributing to our organization as donors, volunteers, and staff, to make sure that we're in line with what is happening in today's day and age in the sphere, so that way we don't end up as one of those nonprofits who failed because they weren't engaging, because they had poor leadership, because they lost the trust of their community, because they weren't paying attention to their staff and their volunteers, and they were drowning in burnout. We as leaders have to take the first step into being a part of this conversation and helping shape it and help giving structure to the feedback that we receive. So that's my challenge for you today. I'd love to hear your feedback on just some of the topics that we brought up today, but I'm going to leave you with that. What can your organization be doing today that helps take you out of the cycle that we just described and helps build the trust of the people that you are both serving and serving with? I'd love to hear your answers. Make sure you comment and subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.